Tuesday, World Economic News. It shouldn't be as long as yesterday's. It's an overall picture today, maybe. First chart is a big one, going back 1870. GDP per capita versus US stock prices. The real growth in GDP per capita, the orange going across the top, you can see it's just a wonderful constant rise, as is the rise in the S&P stock market. That will have been obviously worked out how it would have been from the Dow probably, because the S&P doesn't go back that far. But it's just a constant rise all the way from 1870. Now what I'd like to note there is, or just ask you, when was oil invented? When was it first dug out of the ground? When did they stop using whale oil and go on to rock oil? So that's that one. I've given you loads of charts lately, and quite a few just yesterday, about how things look. I haven't done commercial real estate for a while, so you can see this is from 2001 till the present day, 10 years, and it's gone up and back to where it started. The United States commercial real estate. And that article saying how the Fed has helped them out an awful lot. So they didn't crash, although the prices have crashed. Fed chart. This one is household liabilities, personal people at home, and how much money they've taken on. And you can see this is the 10-year thing again. And they were borrowing $7 trillion in 10 years ago. They got to a maximum of $14 trillion 2008, and they've come down slightly to just over 13. But there's $6 trillion out there that's been borrowed in the last 10 years, $6 trillion, up from $7 trillion, so it's almost doubled in the last decade. And we move on to this chart, which is the Case-Shiller, and you can see going back to the grey-blue line vertical, that's the tech crash, that's the recession before this one, and where it all started, 2001, 10 years ago, and prices are about where they started. So there's that $6 trillion worth of debt out there, hanging around, paying for. It's been, it's been moved through the banking system, but the debts are hanging around out there with little assets backing them anymore, which is bad for the banks, but they can pass that back through government onto the taxpayers. But the owners of those debts have underwater debts to be paid back, and the debts are going nowhere. Moving on. Next one, these are food stamps, and I've marked a quick yellow there 10 years ago, and that's where the food stamps started taking off. These are millions, aren't they? So there's 17 million then, and now we're pushing 45 million Americans on food stamps. Snap. We're getting the picture. I would hope that's what I'm trying to put across, the picture anyway. This one's slightly different. This is the USDX, it's the dollar. And as you can see in the last, this is 10 years as well, decade, coming down from 120 down to about 70. But it hit the 70 in about 2008, and it's bumbled along the bottom. But I think it's bumbled along the bottom because there was a world realization that all national currencies were equally as bad as the dollar, so it hasn't tumbled any further because it's just an ugly in an ugly contest, and it's no uglier than any of the others. They're just all ugly. Right, out of the United States, and let's go to Saudi Arabia here. How to spend it. This is by Tom Gara at Tilt, Financial Times. Saudi Arabia's King Abdullah unveiled on Friday additional financial support measures estimated to cost another $93.3 billion. This is over and above the other ones that were announced a couple of weeks ago. In total, both measures amount to More than half the $203 billion in oil export revenue accrued during the past year. That you just agreed to pay more money to the people to stay in power, to hold on to things, which amounts to more than half the yearly oil revenue. That is a lot of money just to stay in power. Will it work? But you can imagine what that's established now. That's established for the future. You won't be able to take it off next year. The Telegraph gives us this is the last one. Safe nuclear does exist, and China is leading the way with thorium. A few weeks before the tsunami struck Fukushima's uranium reactors and shattered public faith in nuclear power, which it looks like it has done, China revealed that it was launching a rival technology to build a safer, cleaner and ultimately cheaper network of reactors based on thorium. Ambrose Evans Pritchard this is, and he starts the article with "This passed unnoticed, except by a small band of thorium enthusiasts. But it may mark the passage of strategic leadership in energy policy from an inert and status quo West to a rising technological power willing to break the mould." And I think he's quite right to say that. There are two big things in there. But I think the main thing that is in line with this video is the passage of strategic leadership in energy policy, but I don't think it's just energy policy, from an inert and status quo West. What I'm trying to show here is, 10 years ago was the end of the dot-com crash, the tech crash, where everybody believed that everything was absolutely leaping and bounding on because computers got faster and faster. And then it's kind of, their brains went, everything's going to go faster and faster and better. But reality struck over the last decade that not everything moves at the pace of computer technology. Most of the rest of the world things move very, very slowly indeed, and energy moves very slowly indeed. We're stuck in the West. We're broken. We've got no ideas. I don't think even the thorium reactors in the East are going to do them any good. But in the West, what the bloody hell are we going to do? We are stuck in a rut. We're paying a fortune for these, not industries, the society that we've got has been built over hundreds of years, and it's expensive, complex, and difficult to maintain. And we just don't have the energy, the money, the brains anymore to maintain it. We've just run out of ideas. The East have got new ideas. They've got ideas coming out of their toes, but will it be enough? What will they get with their new ideas, with their thorium reactors and whatever? But even just forget the East. What are we going to do in the West? Can't we just see how moribund we are, or inert and in love with the status quo? We don't want to change. We want things to stay as they were, because where they were, we were really good and comfortable on top of the world, looking down on creation. But it hasn't been like that for a long, long time. And we can go right back to that first chart that goes back to 1870. All that I'm going to put forward is based on cheap oil. 1870 to now, the rise of the West has been based on brilliant ideas of how to harness and move forward everything based on cheap oil power. What are we going to do now? Everything is based on that. That chart says everything should continue moving forward. Where are you going to put your money? Will it? Or won't it? Bye.